Dude, so I leave tomorrow morning to LA for the marathon.
For the full, right? It's a full
The full
marathon.
thing, yeah, all 26.2.
Are you going to qualify for Boston?
No. I don't
No.
think so.
You're like, I'm going to get shin splints and break my leg.
I set it as my goal when I first started. And so the thing about like Boston qualifying that I learned last week is that you have to be like a couple minutes under the standard. So it used to be 3 hours, which is like about 7-minute mile pace.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 6:58 or something. And I was like, okay, I think I can do that. I ran my long run 18 miles in like 7:05 pace. So, like super shoes. I bought like the Alpha Flies. They're like carbon plated, almost illegal shoes for my amateur.
Preston, I'm not going to make running my whole personality.
Yeah. You should see the gels I have too. They're disgusting. But
continue.
one of them is like banana flavored, which like
didn't you buy it?
I did.
Well, it
was a variety pack. I was like, who put banana in here?
Should we say what the episode's about before we continue talking about running?
Oh yeah. So today is a very special episode. It's our Q&A episode. So
it's our first ever one. Mostly because people blow up my Instagram questions every time I put something on the podcast on there, and some of them don't fit into a category. So we're going to try to answer them now. And I think this is
actually a
19.
running episode with a brief intermission to go over Q&A.
Wait, what?
By running, I just mean we're going to talk about my marathon.
Oh, right. We're just going to ask Preston questions about his
I haven't finished talking about Boston qualifying yet. I've got the bug where I have to tell everyone that I'm training for a marathon.
And you're in a run club.
Yeah.
You're like, here's my chafing product of choice.
I show up every now and then. But
you're beyond the run club now? You're better than the run club.
I just like, there's no formal participation, I guess.
Do you know, Preston, you weren't on yet. The camera is no longer on that stack of books and boxes. It's on a tripod, and I have a ring light on. So we're big leagues now. We're big league.
I can see it. You look professional.
I look professional. So it's got it.
And you got a haircut.
No, I did not. It's the same haircut.
Well, you got a haircut last time.
Nope.
Preparation. Okay.
No, close.
Live from How to Be Patient.
So today's our questions, but first we can talk more about running. Because I'm also trying to think, I don't want to do a marathon. I never want to do a marathon because my family does marathons, and that's a curse. But you're running, not the push-ups, but the running videos. I'm like, maybe I should run again. Because I'm like, I did like running. Should I run again this spring? I don't know.
It's kind of liberating,
What will you do after the marathon?
I think I'm going to chill out and then probably go back to lifting for a little bit.
You're not you haven't caught the bug? I feel like you're going to catch the bug. It's going to they're going to be clapping for you when you come in, and you're going to be like,
we'll see.
Humanity is so great. It's time.
I think I'll be annoyed if I'm like close to qualifying for Boston, but don't. And then I'll probably try to do another one. So like, I think realistically, the fastest I could probably run is like a 2:54.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably need to run under 2 hours 50 to qualify for Boston. So
are you someone who runs, like, I know you ran in college, but for like long distance, are you someone who's like runs faster than you think you're going to, or hits like very close to what you predicted, or is longer?
I think I'm always pretty close to what I predict. Like I don't think I'm underselling myself.
You're like, my body is a microchip. I know what I can do.
Well, yeah, and Garmin predicted me at that. I mean, my Garmin watch can account for the dog that I have in me, but it can look at all the other factors, So we'll see. We're letting it off the leash Sunday morning. We'll see what it
Let's releash it by Wednesday.
It'll be rekennelled. So I feel like, Margaret, you get way more questions than I do just because you do a great job of interacting with your Instagram stories as like a form of collecting information. So I'll let you go first and see what questions you found so far.
Oh, wait, we were going to do something else first, though. I wanted to ask because it's the time of the year it is now, and we're also reaching the end of that we're starting to transition clinical years. So I was going to ask you, how does it feel to almost be done with your second year?
Honestly, I haven't really noticed. Like, I think I'm looking forward to having some stability in clinic, which I know can also bring monotony. And also, like, I don't know, I feel like the blend in responsibilities has been like more and more blurred for me in residency, at least.
What do you mean?
Like, when I went from being an intern to being a PGY2, all of a sudden I was taking call. So it seemed like there's this like huge step up in responsibility. But like to me, it felt like I was making all the same decisions. I was doing all the same work. It's just I had like one less person to report to, but I still have to report to people. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
there's just like one less person in the queue on the way up. I'm like, okay. And so like I have a little bit more autonomy like now as a PGY2, but it doesn't feel as quantized as it did as a med student where they're like, okay, you're going from like only doing onky to now all of a sudden you're in the hospital
Right.
to
Like
now instead of us babysitting you everywhere you go, you can like go places on your own.
right.
And then after that, and then the next big step I think was you can hit prescribe on a medication.
Mm.
But since then it's kind of all this feels like this like long train of work, and I don't I
Oh,
don't, I don't get like as excited about going forward. Also, I don't know,
unlike
like
the podcast.
yeah, no, seriously. The podcast is fun.
Period.
I like talking to you. This is cool. I will say all this aside, dear listener, I'm a bit jaded with residency right now. Like
Mm.
I remember just like sitting down, I'm on an inpatient psych ward right now, and I was just like so annoyed with like the regularness of life. Like I feel like so much of what I do is just like monotonous, repetitive, bureaucratic, and like drawn out. You know, like the amount of times you sit through like these like redundant meetings where people prattle on about like nothing that's like necessarily like helpful or pertinent. And then like the
Mhm.
highlight of your day might be like a 30-minute patient interaction where you go
Mhm.
back to becoming like a slave to documentation.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, okay, I get to go do this in the outpatient setting now too. Like, I don't know. I don't feel excited about that.
I will say I'm biased. I'm biased and I like outpatient. I feel like I liked third year was my favorite year of residency. I mean, maybe fourth year because there's just more chill time and you get to like hyper specialize. But third year, I felt the most like I was like their doctor. And also then you get to
Hmm.
start having, I know we've talked about this, but I think even more so in third year where you have patients you're seeing every couple weeks and you really know your therapy patients. Like, I mean, I've had patients where like during our last session, I like teared up because of how like connected I felt to them and how much like I think our work was meaningful to them and to me as a trainee.
Hmm.
And I think you have that ahead of you. I'm not a huge inpatient person, so
Yeah,
I also felt that second year.
I don't feel that connection when I'm filling out like the order of protective custody or Baker Act on someone
Yeah.
who's like basically telling me that like this like carceral environment is like the worst thing society's ever created. Like, yes, I think they're sick and that this is like the important thing for them, but like it doesn't feel good, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
But I think I have gotten some glimpses of that where we have like one longitudinal clinic like once a week, and I've had some triumphs there that I'm like, okay,
Mhm.
I see why I would like this. And I've actually had times where I was tired and didn't want to go into work, and then the longitudinal clinic like turned it around, and I was like, oh wow, they remembered things that I said, and it like changed their life, or they were excited to come back and tell me things.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like I had a patient want to show me like a photo of their daughter, and they were like, you're you're like the third person in my life I've showed this to. I was like, wow, like what an
Why wasn't I
honor.
first? Just kidding.
Yeah, it was like it was like the father, the grandparents, and me.
And me, Preston.
Yeah. It's like, wow, like this I'm like in that circle of people that you want to share things with. So that's cool and it's energizing and rewarding. So maybe I won't be an impatient person. I thought I was. It's like the full of the hospital, but who knows? Margaret, you're going to be a fellow next year. How does that feel?
Um, Good. It feels good to be a fellow. I think finishing residency is exciting. I think I would be feeling more feelings about it if I wasn't staying in town where I am and uh, going to be around a lot of people I already know from residency. I
Hmm.
think I always cry at graduations, even when I'm like, "F this, I hated this." I'm like, you know what? Actually, I didn't hate it. Um, so yeah, I'm thinking a lot about how do I like transition my role as outpatient chief and like how do you think about handing over that role to the next person who will have it and help there be positive kind and then also thinking about like handing over your patients who you've really connected with and trying to make that as smooth as possible, and also kind of giving them a transitional object. So, like, how do you reinforce that the relationship mattered for both of you
Mm.
and give them something to hold on to? Because it is a type of, I think, death when you are doing weekly therapy, at least in the psychodynamic lens. And then at some point, you stop seeing them, whether that's because the work is done, they're moving, you're moving to a different stage of life, whatever. But that's hard. I definitely feel very connected to my patients that I see every week, and I'm trying to think about how to end well, which I think is a really beautiful question, but a hard question in psychiatry.
How do you stick the landing of residency?
Yeah. I mean, I guess kind of how do you stay with the feeling of it, and how do you be thoughtful, like any graduation or ending of
What is
something?
that feeling? Is it
What do you mean?
nostalgia for you?
No, I think it's just I've been in therapy before for I've had some of my therapy patients for 2 or 3 years, and, like,
Mhm.
we've been through a lot together in their life and in my life as a trainee, and I've had that as a therapy patient myself, and I'm just so aware of how important it was that my therapist, and when I was in med school, ended that therapy well,
Mhm.
and so I wanna be thoughtful of being present to that and using, like, instead of checking out and going to the next stage, kind of being like, I wouldn't do that probably anyway, but thinking of, like, how do I make this ending not just feel like for that person? Like, how do I reinforce what we've
Mhm.
done together and help the story come to the end of its narrative arc in some way?
Gotcha. So you need to dramaturgically make sense.
Dramaturgic, like that, as I was saying that, I was like, I am I was like, I am sounding like I'm been in a
Yeah,
psychoanalytic fellowship
yeah.
this year, and
The
that's
theater of your life, the final act has to close in a satisfying way so the audience stands up and
dramaturgy.
laps
Yeah.
and claps.
I don't know, like, have you been in therapy where it ended, but it was, like, really, really important and good, meaningful therapy for you? Like, it's like a really it's a gift, it's like a privilege to have been
Mhm.
with someone in this, and I think ending it well can if you don't end it well, it's not that it ruins all the other work, but I just think ending it well can really help almost, like, seal in that goodness you worked on together.
Mhm. Yeah. I've been on the receiving end of therapy that ended well. I
Yeah.
have yet to. I'm only like 6 months in, or I guess 8 months into like my longitudinal clinic. I have yet to graduate a therapy patient. I've had some just kind of ghost me, but none
And if
none
you guys wanna
reached
come on the
the.
podcast and just kidding.
Yeah, only hurts my feelings a little bit.
That's
Um,
fair. We've all been ghosted by
but I
patients.
think I think like good closure, yeah,
Yeah.
is something that feels nice.
Alright, so shall we do questions or
Mhm.
so I had the first one. A question we got on Instagram, and I'm gonna not I didn't write down people's names for this because I'm realizing sometimes people don't want their names attached to these. So, um, the question I picked for our first one is, can you guys talk about managing academic feedback in a productive way?
Do you want me to answer or are you gonna answer?
I can answer first.
Okay.
I will say I think one of the most important things that I learned how to do in med school, mostly because my dad had a good sense of humor and was in medicine, was recognizing who are the people you want to be like and who are the clinicians or people that you don't want to be like. And then letting the people you admire, like letting their feedback really matter, especially if it's constructive, meaning it's not just vague, like you're bad at medicine, like you can't really do anything about that. That's not
You can get better
concrete.
at
You
medicine.
can get better at medicine. Yeah, period. Podcast over. How to get better at medicine is the next podcast. Um, but then, like, so doing that for your people who you like really inspire you in healthcare and you want to be more like, but then the feedback you get from people who are like, I actually really dislike this clinician. I don't like how they are with patients. I don't respect them intellectually. That becomes the question of, well, how do I work well, good enough with this person and get through this without taking to the core of who you are someone's feedback? For example, like, I think I had a surgery attending who thought I was pretty incompetent at surgery, which, like, honestly, fair, valid, but also his he wasn't a psychiatrist. That, like,
Mhm.
he wasn't the style, so I was like, "Okay, I'll get better at performing this, but I'm not gonna take it to my soul that he doesn't particularly get what I want to do with med school.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Um, so I don't know if it's necessary to differentiate academic feedback from any feedback in kind of this paradigm of advice I'm giving. But my mom had this saying she would tell me, which is, if one person calls you an asshole, maybe they had a bad day. If two people call you an asshole, maybe you have a bad day. But if three people call you an asshole, you're an asshole. And I think that this stands for being in the hospital too. Like the truth of the matter is like your results speak for themselves. So if one person says like, "Hey, I didn't like your presentations," okay, maybe they just didn't like your presentations. Like maybe they're just an uptight person, you know. But if the next rotation they don't like them, the rotation after they don't like them, if you get another comment on a different setting that they don't like them, the odds are that these like four people are like all collaborating in this grand
In
scheme to
cahoots.
gaslight you and just to show how like you just ended up with four different unreasonable attendings. Like the odds of that go down and the odds that you just happen to be bad at presenting go up. So I think it's important to like pay attention to like the frequency at which something comes up before you start to give like valence or value to it, I guess. That's really like what I do for me. So each like no matter how like searing or positive the feedback is, I try to kind of just say like, okay, this is just like one grain in the bucket and we'll see if the bucket fills up or not. And a good example of that is like um so I have ADHD and one of the ways that like my inattention manifests is like it's like staying like focused on something for an extended period of time is can be like painful for me. So like if I like don't take my medication during the day or something, I'll fidget, I'll like want to check my phone or check my watch or something else, like direct my attention somewhere else, or it's easily picked up by something else. And so I remember as a med student, my preceptor would be like on her laptop, like answering emails while I'm interviewing the patient. And then she would like send me an email while I'm interviewing the patient so that the notification would buzz on my watch. And then I would check my watch because the notification goes off and I want to see if it's something important. It's just an email from her like 3 feet away.
Just a smiley face.
And I go back to interviewing the patient. Yeah.
You're doing great, sweetie.
And then the feedback at the end of the rotation was, hey, you check your watch a lot during interviews with the patients. And I was like, bro.
You were like, girl, we both have ADHD.
Yeah, like, homie, like, yeah, I could like not check them more, but like, why are you sending me messages while I'm emailing the patient? Like, you're not jar checking, dog. So I remember just being like annoyed about that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was kind of like, I was like dismissive of that feedback. But then I got feedback like other places like, hey, like I noticed like, you know, even if you're in the back of the room or something, you're checking your phone, or one of the social workers complained that, you know, you're looking at your phone during rounds or during like table rounds, even after you presented. So just so you know, people are noticing. And then I'm like, okay, well, like, yeah, maybe I was checking my watch too much during that session. I could externalize and blame it all on her for emailing me, but also maybe I am being too distracted.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I took that actually as a sign that like, okay, this is imperfect. And I went and changed my dose of my medication
Mm-hmm.
and also like made my own behavioral adjustments. So like I would use a different smartwatch, or I'd like change my notifications or something else. So I would like set up barriers to alter my behavior. So I also recognized that there were flaws in the feedback I was getting, but as it started to stack up, there was validity to it. And then I made change, I guess. And I think like that kind of the reason why I shared all those like personal anecdotes is because I think that's a good model to approach academic feedback.
Yeah.
You know, because it's all just evidence, and you just decide what you want to do with that evidence.
Yeah. This is something people will say, but I like, as I get further as a chief, as I get into the middle management role, I think there on one hand, being able to identify like mistreatment, I think can be hard for people, especially when you go into medical school and if you're straight from college and you're like having imposter syndrome, if that's a thing, you're doubting yourself, you're having anxiety, you're in a really weird, hyper monitored way of training. That like being able to know that some of that is causing anxiety in you, because it causes anxiety in human beings. And at the same time, there's a lot of things that can be made use of, even if even if the person is like someone you don't want to be like at all, or like it's not constructive or it's not a pattern, that it's like asking that question of, can I make use of this in any way without beating myself up with it? I think it helps make hard rotations also a lot more,
Mhm.
I don't know, beneficial for you.
Yeah. And to your point of like, how can I use this to benefit me? I think one of the best lessons I learned about taking feedback in academic settings is to literally just take it. So I know we all have this compulsion to explain why something happened the way it was. Oh, sorry for checking my watch. I have ADHD. I have all these problems. Like I just shared none of that with that person. I just said thank you for the feedback.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I'm really glad I did that, even though I had this kind of compulsion to explain myself away, explain these things. I don't think it just necessarily helps because the feedback is an observation that they're making.
Right.
And you don't need to try to explain to them why their observation is justified or unjustified.
Hmm.
It's just an observation. So I think it can be frustrating for people trying to give you feedback for you to kind of explain it away or add all these caveats to it, even if you're trying to like say why your intent was good. So unless there's like legitimately a mistake, I
Hmm.
usually just try my hardest to just say, thank you, I'll think about that, or like I appreciate your input.
Hmm.
And just keeping it short goes a long way because taking feedback can be really hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as I got into residency and started giving people feedback, I noticed the most challenging ones were when I try to like give a comment and then all of a sudden I can't get a word in because they're explaining all these other things as to like why
Hmm.
like my observation was like inaccurate or something.
Hmm.
So
Yeah. No,
just
I think those
being on
are,
like the student side and the resident side, I've seen that like it goes over better for me if I just take it in same way when you're kind of like giving it to somebody.
yeah. I think also what you learn from the resident side is like, how do you make this digestible for someone as like a student? Um, that like there is an art to giving constructive feedback and it's a skill and not, and you have to practice at that. And I think and be intentional. I think there's some people who are naturally good at it, maybe, but like
Hmm.
being able to attune well to the person trying to learn from you, like what's useful to them, what do they want to learn, what are they motivated by, and then like not being conflict avoidant, but giving like someone 8 critiques on something is like not, they're not going to be able to take all of that
Hmm.
in at once, and nor is it helpful.
And their only takeaway may be that they failed.
Exactly.
Yeah. It feedback is an empathetic activity,
Hmm.
very empathetic activity.
For people early in their like med school, I feel like early in residency, this part does get a lot easier. Like I think of third year me of med school versus me now. And like, I have so much more capacity now to be like, oh, I am kind of bad at that. Okay, how do we work on it? Whereas I think when you're
Hmm.
early in your career, like I had failed a couple tests my first year of med school. And like, I think that made me very like anxious and nervous to prove to myself that I was smart enough to be doing what I was doing. And
Hmm.
that just if you feel that way in med school, I do think it gets a lot better because you get reps under your belt and you're like, oh, here are my strengths, and they grow and you see
Hmm.
them and other people see them. But the early parts of training are hard because you just sort of feel like a fish out of water. At least I did.
Yeah, you haven't poured the foundation
Hmm.
and like the concrete hasn't dried yet on your like the stability of yourself in medicine. Yeah.
Okay, good question. Hopefully we help. Give us
Yeah,
feedback
I
on
hope
it.
so. Yeah, please.
Give us eight
There's
critiques.
people whose entire career is just like analyzing like how to give good feedback and everything with trainees.
But psychiatry's made me so much better at that because it's just like literally you'll have people watch your interaction with someone and be like, why did you say that?
Yeah, no, some of the best feedback I got as a med student was like on my psychiatry rotation. It was pointed, it was actionable, it was without judgment, and it was like helpful. Some of it I still use. Like um my last partner feedback. One time I walked out of a room and the resident said like, "Hey, I noticed you asked a lot. How'd you feel when this happened? How'd you feel when that happened? How'd you feel about this?" And I was like, "Yeah," like I was trying to kind of like get at their emotions, I guess. And he goes, "Yeah, well, we're on like child right now, and like kids struggle a lot with articulating their emotions." And like that's kind of a tall order to ask someone to be like, "Okay, what was I thinking? And then how did I feel about that? And what emotions are those? And then name those emotions." So maybe just ask them like the random thoughts that were going through their head. It's easier to produce a thought than it is to produce an emotion. And I was like, holy crap, you know? He like literally looked at the words I was saying. Okay, sorry. There's like there's a battle going on right here.
Someone gave bad feedback to the
They were
other.
actually attacking
Magnolia
each
was
other.
like, "You're a dumb. You need to get out of my house."
She was like, bing, bob, boom, bang, boom, bop, bam.
Ellen, you wouldn't understand.
Yeah. But anyways, like, yeah, I was like, okay, I can follow that. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Before we go to the next question, we will be right back after this quick break.
I have one. This is submitted to the podcast page. Good luck on this journey, guys. Great conversations from two very inspiring doctors. That's it. There wasn't a question. I just wanted to hear it. No, I'm just kidding. Also interested in psych. Would be amazing if you could address some of the fears or negative thoughts surrounding psych residency and exposure to mental health draining situations and how to combat them. So
I feel like you started the episode by talking about that.
yeah,
You go.
I'll happily go into that because I'm already feeling drained. One of the first conversations that I had when I was thinking about psych and was worried about it was like, how do you keep from taking work home with you? Because you do deal with a lot of despondent situations and just like emotionally draining interactions can be really hard. And I would say like a part of me got like used to it and callous, and I didn't like that I was losing that, I guess. Like I could feel like I'm like writing this note and I'm like, I don't care the outcome of this. And in a lot of ways it can be liberating, but I don't think that was like adaptive in the way I wanted it to be because I'm trying to be this like thoughtful, nuanced, engaged provider. So weirdly enough, I'm not going to give you a satisfying answer here, but hobbies were like probably the single best thing that helped me in like psych residency. And it was like discovering that I had things that I enjoyed outside of the hospital. Like I couldn't, no matter how I reframed it or how positive my attitude was or all the things I did, I could not like recharge my battery in the hospital, but I could recharge it outside of the hospital. And so like this marathon training we've been joking about for a long time has actually been like so rejuvenating for me because like I'll have like a long run that I'm looking forward to. And I'm like, okay, like, this will be fun. My friend's joining. We're going to go do this afterwards. And I'll find myself like getting kind of antsy to leave work so I can go do these other things. And I have this other, like almost like a parallel arc, like a subplot in my life that I'm working towards or looking forward to like accomplishing things for. And that was so much more energizing when I left work. So it was like I had something waiting for me at home. And for some people, that's your family or your pets or anything else. But for me, it was creating like kind of like that hobby or something I could express myself in. So I like it's like when someone asks, "What's the best way to become healthy and lose weight?" And the answer is always just like eat well and exercise. Like it's simple and it's that hard. I guess you have to find something that you enjoy outside of the hospital. It's something that like gives you identity outside of medicine.
I think my answer to this would be, I guess, twofold. One would be the less allergic you can get to your own imperfect human responses, like the better. So if you are, for this listener, not for you, if you are feeling like despondent or you're feeling like, I don't really like this patient, or like, I'm annoyed, I'm frustrated, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm irritated, I think there's a secondary kind of emotional response that we often have, which is to say, I shouldn't feel that way, especially early on in training. I think it's like, I shouldn't feel this way. Like, good doctors care about their patients all the time. Good psychiatrists always are perfectly empathetic. Other people aren't struggling with this the way that I am. And I think primarily, and as psychiatrists, like, and having a lot of friends in healthcare, other people are struggling with that, like, kind of empathy gap, if you want to call it that, although I don't think that's accurate. But so I think that there's a lot of hoops that we jump through in the formation of applying to being pre-med, applying to med school, getting into a residency, that teaches us we have to disown a lot of parts of ourselves because we are marketing ourselves as this perfect, caring, smart doctor. And And we internalize that. And I think that makes pain even harder. It makes grief even harder. It makes that sense of loss or corrosion of belief in the system harder when we're like, and you're bad because you're having that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what I would say. And then the other thing I will add, besides I agree with the hobby and having other stuff, I was laughing because I was thinking about that video you did a couple of years ago that was like, when you rotate with Psych, and it's like he has like a plant and like a car. It's like Psych is always on side quests.
Yeah, I'm wearing the same shirt
Are
as I
you?
was wearing
Yeah.
that video. Yeah.
The other thing I was gonna say, and I was saying this when we're in the point of the year where we transition from current fours to the upcoming PGY fours for chiefs. And I was telling my friend who's gonna be a chief, like, when you're working in a hospital system, when you're working in psychiatry or healthcare in general, there can be a lot of things that cause moral injury and that are really slow to change. But if there are areas you see, even as simple as like planting a community garden, or I like added a lecture series that I like just annoyed a bunch of faculty and was like, would you volunteer 1 hour of time to teach us on this? Or this podcast, honestly, for me, it's like something that you have a good chance of really being able to like see it change and grow even in a small way can help with that feeling of, I think, stagnation and like nothing will ever change, because I think that moral burnout can be really tough.
You just have to employ your mature ego defenses.
And be okay with your not mature one.
Sublimate, practice altruism,
Humor.
find a sense of humor. Yeah, that's all it takes.
Get a giggle in there every once in a while. I do think, because they asked about psych compared to other specialties, you have to redefine what a win is in psych.
Absolutely.
And I think that's cool. I think that's great. I think it makes having to do that with my patients makes me better at it in my own life, but it can't be like we cured them of their infection, because like you're not going to have that often in psychiatry.
Yeah. Here, like, the medical model that we apply is like, if I cure your depression, that's a win. Like, I don't know, dude. I think the win is like, you had a shower today. Let's start with that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That helps. Changing what the goalpost is. It's a
Mhm.
big difference. Okay, cool. So, next question.
All right. Ready?
Mhm.
I know we did an episode on coping, but this one is more specific than in residency, which is coping strategies to survive med school from a psychiatric perspective. I'm thinking of the timeline in med school, and I feel like it's like the first year and a half, 2 years of like lectures and studying for step one, the being judged on clinical rotations and not being around your friends because suddenly you're all in different rotations, and then the anxiety of fourth year and or the excitement, anxiety, and disappointment of the match. Um, so I feel like all three of those, you can use similar coping skills, but I feel like the first couple years of med school, the thing that helped me the most was like reading a book on time management and like how to like do the Pomodoro. I know everyone's gonna hate that answer, but
Yeah.
like it just feels like it was endless. And I was like, I knew I wanted to go to psychiatry when I started med school. I was like, I don't care about histology. Like that was not my dream. I don't care about this. So like, how do you dose it out? How do you add the parts you do like in there? For third year, I don't know that I have any tips off the top of my head. And then for fourth year, like I feel like depending on how your school does the match, like having a coping plan regardless for time after you find out whether you're disappointed or really excited, so that you kind of have a cope ahead, like depending on what emotions come up with the match.
I think that choosing how to dose your time is probably the best way for me. That was for me the first 2 years at least. Like, and I didn't use Pomodoro, but I would create like arbitrary rules that I would follow almost like religiously. Like, it's 8 p.m. the night before an exam. I'd be like, no more studying allowed. Like, you're going to make dinner and you're going to like watch TV or something. And I need to like follow those rules. And that's not to say like, oh, that doesn't mean I didn't study that before the exam. Well, no, I knew that rule was coming up, which is why I studied really hard earlier in the day, because 8 p.m. is my cutoff regardless. And I had to respect it. So by like creating those walls for myself, I could like allow for unprotected time, because when you're kind of just like allowed to study in perpetuity, medicine can dominate every part of your life. So you have to find a way to cage it a little bit.
The other thing I'll say with this, just since we're in the COVID era, hybrid, when you can go to lectures and stay in that habit, stay in the habit of getting up and getting dressed and leaving your house and socializing and wearing shoes. I don't know, like at this point with med schools, like how much has hybrid Zoom options and stuff. But I think if that had been true when I was in my first and second year of med school, I would have been a goner.
Yeah. Or even if you're not going to go to the lecture
Yeah.
and you're using third-party resources, make a plan for the day and create a routine. So you still have to be out of the house by 8 o'clock or something. And then if you're going to a coffee shop just to watch Sketchy or just to like watch Boards and Beyond, do that. But like you need to have your own classroom or a place that you go that gives you a routine.
Any thoughts on coping with the match?
Um,
Just good luck. It's such a weird thing.
My friend actually, I had a friend who matched pretty low on his list and he was kind of upset about it. And he like brought up this paper he read. He was like, yeah, well, the thing that's helped me the most is that they did this survey of resident happiness like around the match and then like right before residency and then like 6 months into residency. And there was a huge gap around the match. And then the gap like almost completely leveled out 6 months into residency. So
Everyone was
whether you were
unhappy.
no, but like whether you were elated about where you're going, then you kind of realize like, oh shit, I still have to go through residency, or whether you're really disappointed about where you're going, you're like, wait, I still get to be in residency. Everyone kind of comes out to be in the same place.
Yeah.
So he was just like, yeah, like so these feelings are temporary that I'm having, and we're all still going to the same destination. So I think that was a great way to cope with it. Actually,
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little bit of intellectualizing, but ultimately just saying like, this is temporary and I can be disappointed and excited and try to hold space for both of those feelings. And it's really hard, especially and for those med students who have parents that have certain expectations. I don't have good advice for that. It's just, it sucks. My parents were just like, why are you going to med school? And I was like, I don't know, I want to. And they're like, okay, have fun, honey. So I never felt like any external pressure. It was always self-imposed. And this all helps with self-imposed problems, I guess.
Cool.
Okay. I'm done. I'm
I
done
know.
talking about that question now.
Your question now.
All right. So, hey guys, love the pod.
I like how you include the ones with praise. You're like, first a little compliment as a treat.
Just wanted to let you know that the eagle sound you used in the most recent episode.
Can we play it here?
Through winter SAD.
Editors, play the eagle sound that we thought was an eagle sound.
It isn't actually an eagle sound. It's a red-tailed hawk. I know that American media has led us to believe that is an eagle, but the sound is not. Eagles actually sound very cute and I would recommend looking it up. Smiley face. I know you guys strive for medical accuracy and excellence, so I hope this extends to bird sounds too. Thank you, Holly, Pod, and Bird Lover. So can we, I made sure to not look at what an eagle sounds like. So can we look up an eagle sound?
Are you going to play it that we can hear it?
I don't know. I'm going to YouTube it really quick. So there's a birdsoundeffects.com.
Sponsor us.
Okay, here we go. Okay, let me know if you can hear it when I play the sound.
Okay. That is so different.
That is pretty. I was used to it's really
I did not expect any piece of that.
So I don't have a question after that. I just wanted to hear what a bald eagle sounded like.
We're gonna sit in silence and awe for 2 minutes and pay our respects. Preston's gonna lead us in mindfulness again.
Did you know that one of the reasons why DDT was outlawed was because of bald eagles?
No, why was it killing them?
Yeah, but indirectly. So I guess the DDT would bind to calcium really well. So it would run off of the farms into like rivers and streams, and then it would get absorbed into the fish. It wouldn't affect the fish, but then when the bald eagles would eat the fish, it would weaken the structure of their eggs. So when they would like lay the egg, they would just shatter right away. And then the bald eagle population was getting affected.
Tina, you know how there's that thing that goes around online that's like, they're putting birth control in the water and it's making the frog.
I don't like I'm putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
It is making the bald eagles infertile. It was actually real.
The damn pesticides that they're putting in the water is making the eagles. I don't know why I'm saying this like in an ironic accent. It's actually what happened.
Scottish
They put
accent,
pesticides in the water and it made the eagles infertile.
Oh, something to think about, listeners. Something to think about.
Next time you shampoo your hair and you're thinking about the ozone layer, just think about your bald eagle fertility in your community.
Constantly thinking about eagle fertility. I don't really know how to transition from that.
We can just keep thinking about those.
No,
wonderful
I don't think we
birds.
should do that to our audience.
Okay. Did you have another question?
Yeah. First of all, how dare you? But second of all, the question, okay, this is my last question for the episode. Approaches to patients who blame everything in life on external factors. That was the only context in the question.
I would say, do you want to answer first? Or do you want me to answer?
Now you can answer first for this one.
I was just talking about this with a patient this morning. They weren't struggling with blaming things on external factors, but their partner was.
Mhm.
And the advice I gave to the patient, which is what I'll give to this listener or writer of the question as well, is that you can't move a ship. Like you can't force someone to see anything they don't want to see, but you can be a lighthouse. So you just kind of have to remember your control. And I don't know why. I guess I do know why, because it would feel righteous and just. We have this desire to force people to see why they're a part of the problem or why they're wrong. And you have to understand that no amount of reason, no amount of yelling, no amount of arguing until you're blue in the face is going to make someone see why they're wrong if they don't want to see that. Or if they're not willing to right now. So that's something you just have to kind of let control of. Let your like desire to control go.
Yeah.
In that regard. And so honestly, once I did that, it's pretty liberating with people that externalize a lot of stuff. And then you can say like, okay, I can still be like a beacon of truth the best I can and kind of offer my opinion like a lighthouse would, but I can't do whatever the ship's doing in the harbor.
Yeah.
And I can say like, I'll be standing here if you choose to come back, but if you want to go out again, okay. I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. So I think like I found that when I'm around someone who externalizes all the time, trying to like pin them down harder just makes things worse. And you just kind of have to almost like take a step back and like protect yourself.
Yeah. I totally agree with, I like that metaphor also, or that saying. I think the other thing I think
Timestamp that Margaret liked my metaphor.
Happened once in season 1.
I use a lot of metaphors. Margaret never says that.
Well, this was a serious metaphor. I like your serious metaphors usually. I think you have that for some people. I think thinking about like what taught them that they weren't that they weren't going to be effective in something. Because I think externalizing can come from a lot of places, but one of the places it can be is like, I haven't had experiences of agency, or I haven't been taught how to both be compassionate to myself and seek change in a difficult environment. And that can happen for a lot of reasons. Certainly we talk about like helplessness in the trauma world when someone's been through a lot very early in development that they literally could not escape or impact from happening to them. And so I think that's part of it. When I think about like COVID, right? Like I think all of us felt sort of out of control and unable to impact things during that time, and maybe still now for a number of reasons. And I do think there's something about practice of being able to show yourself and like respect your own strength and your ability to change things. This may be naive, but I kind of think everyone wants to feel strong. And it doesn't feel
Mhm.
good for people who constantly externalize necessarily. Like they don't feel effective. Like they feel like if everything is not in them at all, they can't change anything. Like that's a very helpless
Mhm.
situation. But they still have to be ready to hear it. And I think we also have to be creative with our empathy and our ability to sit with and wait until someone's ready to engage in small ways and maybe a different way that they're not as familiar with.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's hard to be patient to wait for someone to say, like, "Maybe there is
Podcast
something different
name.
I can do."
Podcast name mentioned. It's hard to be patient. Good thing this is episode 19 on how to be patient.
It's like in those movies when, like, the characters nonchalantly say the title of the movie.
We did it. We did it. Wrap up season
Wow,
1.
look at
Like,
that guy
continue.
Schindler, he's really putting together a list.
Is that in that movie?
No, maybe.
There's a lot of
Wow,
Goodwill Hunting.
I really feel like Shawshank is redeemed at this point.
Legally, she's blonde. Okay, sorry. This is not a funny bit, and I know that. You were saying something real before I derail this.
Gosh, this really is the age of Ultron. Avengers Assemble.
I can't. You were saying something real before this.
It's like we've entered the kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
What is that?
Indiana Jones, the Kingdom of the Crystal
Remember in
Skull.
episode
This is
2 when
not
I
funny.
I
Yeah.
misnamed your branch of the
The military.
military? I was like, is military the right term? And I was like, what was it? What is that movie that I was like, that's you? And you're like, that's actually like Navy and not not Air Force.
Yeah, so we were talking about externalizing. Let me see what I was gonna say. Oh, you have to be patient and wait for them. It's like hard to wait for them to say, like, maybe there
Mhm.
is a difference I can make.
Right.
Maybe this is partly in my control.
Right.
And with that comes also partly my fault. And so, like, if they can accept both of those things, they can get the benefit of being like, wow, I have some power in the situation while also accepting the fault.
I think the other part is a clinician with this, and I think this happens so much in outpatient. It happens in inpatient too, but outpatient, just as you get to know someone, is like externalizing and being like holding someone who's like, there must be another medication that'll fix this. And we can try every medication in the list, but I think at least in psychiatry, like you have to practice getting good at being like, here's what the evidence basis is, which is part of why we do this podcast. Um, Here's what we reasonably think it can do. And that those things integrated with my clinical judgment and my knowledge of the patient, getting comfortable with being like, I actually don't think that a medication change right now is going to help with this repetition with the OCD. I think that we've seen the Lexapro help you a lot, but we need to engage in
Hmm.
therapy. But that is super uncomfortable and has to be done delicately. And people still might get not like understandably upset with you. And I think holding that and having enough space to process that with supervisors, especially early in career, is really important. Because otherwise, you're just going to be mad. Like you are going to be mad, and it'll make sense. You're like, I didn't sleep. I was on call this weekend, and I spent 10 years trying to do this, and now this person's mad at me because I won't prescribe them the XYZ thing. Like I think it's very
Yeah.
easy to get angry.
Yeah. Like the groundwork that you lay for that moment when you build insight, it's not in that initial visit. It can be like expectations that were set months,
Mhm.
uh, expectations that were set months prior before you finally get to that moment and say, like, hey, like, remember I said, like, this medication will be part of it, therapy will be part of it, but also kind of your own environment that you have control over is a part of it. That's
Mhm.
where this part comes into play. And a lot of importance comes from introducing a topic early and giving it time to grow in kind of in the background rather than trying to force something at once because it's got to be very slow.
I think we have to reckon with our own fantasies of where the field is at. as well.
Mhm.
Like what you said at the beginning of the answer to this question, like it is very uncomfortable to not have a good tool to help someone. And sometimes you just don't in any of medicine, but in psychiatry in particular. And I think to feel not capable and like you're not helping, and then someone's telling you that you're denying them something that would help their suffering is an extremely hard thing to hold. So we are at the end of our question round. Next time we do a question episode for season 2, we should do a like hot takes one where it's like, you have 5 seconds to answer this question.
Yeah.
And then we'll get canceled and the show will be over.
Mhm.
um, but yeah, we really appreciate everyone's questions and feedback. It helps us, as we've said, like shape how we format the show and what's working the best and also what's the most useful.
Mhm.
And I feel like the questions we picked went along this theme that people have asked us to talk more on, which is kind of like living in medicine and just the emotional parts of going through
Mhm.
training and dealing with being a person in healthcare.
Yeah. I like how this has become alive and we're interacting with the audience more. It's fun to hear everyone's questions and to kind of get to turn this into a bit of a conversation. I know one thing that they did with the Glockenfleckens is they did a couple like live shows, not like in person on a stage, but they have like host like a live session and just kind of answer questions from the chat.
Hmm.
That could be fun to try as
Yeah.
well too. So if that's something you'd be interested in, please let us know. All right. Well, this was kind of fun. I want to do a better job of like finding more off the wall questions too, and kind of like find small things. So
Like what?
This is kind of our first round farming questions. But
F, Marry, kill.
yeah,
These
exactly.
eponyms of different things from med school.
So, like always, if you want to submit any questions or you have anything you'd like to say, you can come chat with us on Instagram or TikTok at Human Content Pods. You can also message us on howtobepatientpod.com. You can find any of these episodes on my YouTube at It's Presro or on Margaret's her Instagram, Bad Art Every Day, and that's the same on TikTok and Substack as well. Shout out to everyone that left a question today. We kept your names out of it, but also if you have any wins or just like fun anecdotes you want to share, we'd love to read those as well. We'll try to incorporate that into like more long-lasting segments. Thanks again for listening. We're your hosts, Preston Roche and Margaret Duncan. Our executive producers are Preston Roche, Margaret Duncan, Will Flannery, Kristen Flannery, Aaron Corney, Rob Goldman, and Shanti Brooke. Our editor and engineer is Jason Portizo. Our music is by Omer Benzvi. To learn more about our program disclaimer and ethics policy, submission verification, licensing terms, and our HIPAA release terms, go to howtobepatientpod.com or reach out to us at howtobepatient@human-content.com with any questions or concerns. How to Be Patient is a human content production.
How to be patient.
Human content.